Tilea's Troubles, Part 129. Trappings. Prequel to the Battle for Eclano. Scalia, in the realm of Portomaggioran. Late autumn, 2404. It had been hard riding for several days now, despite the fact that they had not ventured particularly far, nor had they strayed beyond the realm of Portomaggioran. But they had covered a lot of ground, attempting to ascertain exactly what was happening and where, while keeping out of trouble all the while. The enemy, an army of Sartosan pirates, had landed at Scalia, in strength far outnumbering the force garrisoned in the city of Portomaggioran. They had then divided in order to attack both Scalia and Eclano, perhaps greedy to maximise the loot they could take. Both areas were home to a good number of rich estates and prosperous villages. Obviously, the Portomaggioran garrison, a substantial force raised by Lord Alessio to defend the realm while he marched north against the vampires, could not stand idly by while this rape of the realm occurred, but nor could it expect to succeed against such superior numbers if it too divided itself. So it was the bulk of the garrison sallied out to defeat that portion of the enemy that had descended upon Eclano, hoping thus to save at least a part of the realm from the pirates' depredations. Meanwhile, Filippo and his Pistolier company were among several companies of light horse ordered to keep a watch on the other enemy force at Scalia. On their journey, they had stuck as best they could to wooded areas, where they might better conceal themselves, then use their native knowledge of the land to ensure that, while they could survey the enemy sufficiently well to ascertain the true situation, they were less likely to be spotted. This is why Sergeant Filippo was accompanied by Tino, a Scalian by birth, who knew the land like the back of his hand. "How close do you think Lord Alessio is?" inquired Tino. Filippo was surprised it had taken until now for Tino to ask this question. It was currently the most common query in Portomaggioran. He supposed Tino thought he, as sergeant, might have a little more insight concerning the matter than street gossips. "I know not," he admitted. "But if he is close, then the Sartosans will pay dearly for their crimes." Everyone knew Lord Alessio's army was marching home, and despite having fought all the way to the far north, deep into the vampires' realms, suffering significant losses from battle and disease, it was likely still to be a substantial force, for it had begun its march far larger than the garrison. Still, whatever did return with Lord Alessio, howsoever reduced in strength, when combined with the garrison force, the resultant army would surely prove more than capable of defeating even a horde of Sartosan raiders. The garrison itself had several veteran regiments, most famously the resplendent foot soldiers of the Sea Guard, and a sizable mercenary dwarven company led by the renowned warlord Gersiak Irongrim, while every man in Lord Alessio's marching army was by now surely a hardened soldier, having gone to a very hell and back in the last year. Fighting pirates would seem to them like a holiday sport compared to the horrors they had experienced. "If you had to guess, though," pressed Tino. "I cannot pretend to know," Filippo said, "but I reckon the Sartosans think he's close." "Why so?" "They could have attacked the city as soon as they landed," said Filippo. "It would have been a hard fight, likely a long one too, and they would have suffered in the taking of it, but the gains would have been considerable. Not only would they have gotten the gold and riches of the city, but afterwards they could have plundered the entire realm at their leisure, the garrison having been destroyed. But no, instead they went immediately for easy targets, dividing their strength to do so, despite the city garrison. They're in a rush. They want their plunder quickly and without too much of a fight. That way they still have their full strength should they need to fight their way out of our realm." The riders were galloping towards the Villa Coriale, where it seemed the southern contingent of the enemy's army were presently concentrated. As they drew near, they grew a little less cautious, having realised that the Sartosans' lack of horse soldiers meant, even if they were spotted, they could likely escape with little loss, perhaps even with ease. although the enemy's long-barrelled handguns remained a worry, and there was a chance the Sartosans had looted the local stables to mount themselves. Apparently, Tina was not convinced by the sergeant's answer. "All that could be true, Sergeant, I grant you, but not certainly. What if the pirates know Lord Alessio is still far from home, and they're only attacking Scalia and Eclano to lure the garrison out of the city? Perhaps they don't care where he is, happy to throw the dice for a chance to win a richer prize. If they can fight the garrison army in the open, then there's no need to assault the walls, and they might gain victory quickly and easily. That done, they can loot the entire realm, the city included." "Of course," exclaimed Filippo, "and that's why we're here. If this lot make a move to support their mates in Eclano, we have to get word as quickly as possible to Lord Nero. He'll then decide how best to respond before the garrison is forced to fight on the Sartosans' terms." "How to respond?" "Aye," said Filippo. "You mean he'll have time to turn about and run back to the city walls while Scalia and Eclano burn?" "Better than the city falling." "Better for them in the city," said Tino. "Not for them out here." Filippo had momentarily forgotten that Tino was a Scalian. "All is not lost, Tino. Lord Nero might have a trick or two of his own, and Lord Alessio could be close. Maybe we just have to spin out time a little, keep the Sartosans busy marching back and forth until they can be defeated." "It's too late for tricks now," said Tino. "The raping and pillaging has already begun. Why didn't Lord Nero lure them to the city?" "And how could he do that?" asked Filippo. "I don't know. I'm not a general. He could have feigned surrender, offered them a bribe, made the city look weak. They're all the sort of games that could spin out time, and none involve the suffering of Scalians. Look here, it ain't mine or your place to question. We follow orders, yes?" A flash of anger washed across Tino's face. "Seems to me that a people's obligation to obey a lord lasts no longer than does the lord's power to protect them." Tino was wandering into dangerous political territory, voicing ideas normally restricted to the musings of radical philosophers or preaching provocateurs. It was a new side to Tino's character that the sergeant had never glimpsed. But then, thought Filippo, Tino's homeland, and presumably his family, had not previously been attacked, while soldiers of Portomaggioran were given orders to do nothing more than watch. Nevertheless, such talk was not to be encouraged. Indeed, another sergeant might consider even its mere utterance punishable. "And it seems to me, Tino, that you should remember it is the Sartosans who are in the wrong here, not Lord Alessio. He's not here to give the orders, and why? Because if he had not personally driven the foul undead back north, there to annihilate them, then all of Portomaggioran, even the whole of Tilea, would have descended into hell. There's your lord's protection." "Aye," said Tino, apparently unconcerned about his brush with treacherous sentiments. "There is that." They rode on in silence, neither willing to explore the matter further. After another hour, utilising Tino's knowledge to navigate a circuitous route through a quiet valley, and having slowed to a cautious pace, Tino announced that they were close to the Villa Coriale. Moments later, he brought his mount to a halt. "There," he said quietly, but clearly, "on the other side of the trees." Filippo peered through the foliage, and his eye was caught not by the buildings, but by movement, in the form of a marching body of men. "Well, that lot are not looting right now," said Filippo. He looked up to find the sun, but cloud and canopy thwarted him. "What with our meandering path, I've lost my bearings, but I think they're heading northwest." "That they are, Sergeant," said Tino, "on the road towards Eclano." Filippo narrowed his eyes and scrutinised the enemy. They were clearly seamen, armed with pistols both large and small, and blades of umpteen kinds, but having not one piece of armour among them. Formed in somewhat ragged ranks and files, they were obviously unconcerned about soldierly postures and dressings. "Might just be these on the move, while the rest continue plundering," he suggested. "And who's to say they're going to Eclano? They could just be looking for the next villa to loot." "Maybe," said Tino, slowly pushing a branch out of the way, that he might see a little better. "They've a banner at their fore," he whispered, "and there's another company following them." Filippo saw that they were not just men. There was a hulking orc among their ranks. As for the rest, some looked like Tyleans or Northerners, while others appeared to be Estalian or Arabian. It were clearly making haste, marching faster than even light foot would normally be expected to. His companion had obviously noticed this fact too. "If they're looking for somewhere else to loot," Tino said, "then they're in a rush to find it." Filippo was beginning to doubt that they were simply scouting about for further opportunities. As they moved quickly by, another, equally fast-paced company hove into view. Of a similar composition, but smaller in number and armed with blunderbusses. They too had a large orc in their midst, striding in a somewhat ungainly manner due to his thick peg of a wooden leg, and bearing a blunderbuss that rivalled a swivel gun in size. More than that, there were smaller orcs, goblins, and even a dwarf among them. "Orcs and dwarfs?" said Filippo. "Aye," agreed Tino, "and men, all wrong uns." "I mean," said Filippo, "serving together, in the same company. I didn't think that was possible." "That's the least of their sins." "Wait," said Filippo. "Now there's another company. I think they are on the march." "Do they know about the garrison army's march? Is this one of the jaws of a trap?" inquired Tino. "I'd say that's likely. We'll know for certain as we ride to Eclano, for they'll either follow us or not." Tino moved his branch again. "This lot are all dwarfs," he said. "Look at 'em, fair bristling with blades and barrels." "Stop moving that branch, will you?" ordered Filippo. "What's the point of keeping to the shadows if we make a tree wave at them?" Tino was not really listening. "I've heard of their kind," he said. "Sea slayers, afraid of nothing. They'd hurl themselves into the Kraken's maw if it meant their blades could cut its flesh." The dwarfs were carrying a golden death's head icon, like that of an orc skull, with crossed bones to bulk it up. Nearly all, to a dwarf, were red-haired and bearded, if not bald. "There's more, and more. Another company behind this lot. Should we be counting them?" Filippo let out a groan. "What do you think I'm doing? Contemplating whether they follow the fashion?" A green-coated captain of a northern countenance led the next band. While Filippo strained to get a look at the company following behind, Tino pulled upon the branch again. The captain halted, then suddenly spun about to begin shouting at those behind him, while pointing at the trees concealing the riders. "You bloody fool!" cursed Filippo. "He's seen us." "I wouldn't worry, Sergeant. We have horses, and I know every path." Filippo could see what this band were armed with now. "It's the guns I'm worried about," he said. Several Sartosans were already taking aim. As the first shots rang out, the riders turned to flee. Filippo saw a branch splinter close by as a bullet tore into it, then heard Tino curse. But he knew any further shots would be wasted. Ducking low, so as not to be knocked from his saddle, he began thinking about who he would send ahead to warn Lord Nero, and who he would keep with him to count the rest of the enemy.